can be very hard to understand sometimes when you're reading, because it's a little bit hard. It's not always jumping out at you. So, the standard that we are actually going to use today, same standard from last week, where we're going to determine a theme of a story, drama, or a poem from details in the text. Also, within this standard, you can summarize the text, but for today's purpose, we're just going to be determining the theme of a story. Now, these content vocabulary cards may look familiar to you because these vocabulary cards should be what you well, at least some of them should be what you have already practiced in vocabulary. But I wanted to keep it very consistent. And so when you look over here at the vocabulary card universal, remember we stated last week that theme is universal. It has to be universal because when you choose a possible theme for a story, it should, that specific theme should be able to be used with another story, okay, and another story different from what you're reading. So we want to make sure that we get away from specifics in a story when we're stating the theme, and we want it to be very universal. So when you're thinking of a lesson that the character is learning, think of how you can word the theme so it's not specific to just that story, because whatever lesson that the character is learning or whatever message that the author is conveying, it should align with other stories, okay, other than the ones that the author has written. So universal just means relating to or experienced by all people. So that's the reason why I wanted to include the word universal, because I want us to remember that theme is universal. Clearly we already know what theme is. We went over that. You guys did a wonderful job in the chat box by telling me what theme is, as I do now for excuse me, for this week. Now, in the middle here with the word villain and triumph, I included those two vocabulary cards because sometimes, in stories, you may see a villain, and the villain may have to learn, a lesson, or there may be a message from the villain. But then sometimes you can have stories where the character is learning how to triumph through different situations, so to how to overcome different situations. And so I think that is really important there. And so here I included character and plot because, as you all stated earlier, which you guys did a good job in the chat box, is that when you find theme, obviously you are using the character and the plot and all of these key details to figure out what the possible theme of a story may be. And so we're going to keep that consistent even with our story this week. So our story this week is actually a chapter book. I kind of wanted to get out of doing a passage for this week because I wanted to show you all how we can apply these same skills to an actual chapter book, okay? And so if you look here, the story that we're actually going to be going over today is A Brave New Mouse, Ellis Island Approved Immigrant. And this is actually book 5 out of this series. I chose this book because it just seems so interesting when I read what this book would be about. And so I thought, oh man, like we could think of so many like lessons going through this story. And so this book, and I know that a lot of you all in this class like to go a step further and read more into the book. So I'm going to actually show you all where this book can be found, and you guys can read the rest of it, because we won't be able to read all of it throughout before the end of the school year. But this is something that you can continue your reading even throughout the summer. So I just wanted to show you all what the book is. Now, a part of our this is chapter 1, but a part of our team norms is that you should familiarize yourself with the story before we get to class, okay? So this chapter, as well as chapters 2, 3, and 4, is found under the Files tab. And just in case you may not know where that is, I'm going to show you that at the end of class as well. But for today's purpose, we're not going to be able to read this entire chapter of chapter one. We're just really going to glance over details, and then we're also going to be filling out our graphic organizer here. Now, so with our story here, I wanted to show you all how to determine a theme from chapter to chapter. Now, the reality is that sometimes, the author may go ahead and show us what the lesson that the character is going to learn throughout the first chapter. But then sometimes you may read a book where you might not even know what the message of the story is until you get to the last chapter of the book. So this is the reason why I think it's important for us to uncover, doing this work through a chapter book. Okay. So, okay. And so I just want to, make sure I kind of get through this. So with chapter one, the reason why you see numbers, and no, they aren't perfect numbers. However, I tried to do my best. I wanted to keep it consistent with the unravel strategy here. And so I have numbered the paragraphs in our story. But let's really pay attention to what's actually included in our story before we start just kind of uncovering the paragraphs. So you should be able to see a picture on the side of this, on the right side of our story. So with this picture, I want you to hop in the chat box. Well, not hop in the chat box. I'm sorry about that, guys. Go to the chat box and tell me, what do you see in this picture? Because what I realize is that perception is very real. Okay, so I want to see what you all see in this picture here. So I see that, Miss Lewis has already given us a sentence stem already. Thank you, Miss Lewis. So what do you see in this picture? Oh, Shania is first response. She said that I see a mouse. Very good. Okay, let's see if someone else sees anything different. Let's see here. I'm checking these responses, so keep them coming in, okay? I'm checking these responses. I see a lot of people. Oh, I see a mouse in a crowd. Jabari says that he sees a mouse in a crowd. Mustafa says that I see a lot of people. Trinaya says that I see a mouse in people. I see a mouse talking to the crowd. Okay, Isaiah. See, Isaiah has uncovered a little, just a small detail that's different from what everybody else is putting in the chat box. Very good. So maybe the mouse is talking to the crowd of people. What else do we see? I'm actually going to write what I see. I just wrote in the chat box what I see. Okay, Paradise says that I see a mouse saying a speech in a crowd full of mouses. Oh, okay. Maybe they're mouses. Okay, maybe so. Let's see. and the good thing about doing different chapters is we learn something different with every chapter. And so I see that Kendall has put in here, I see a mouse performing and the crowd is engaging. Oh, way to go. The crowd is engaging, maybe. Okay, so Shania says she see a lot of people in a mouse. Very good. So I just wanted to check with your responses. Now, I want you all to really pay attention to our heading for chapter one. So if you look up under chapter one, our heading is failed again. Okay, so when I read the heading, I said, oh, maybe this chapter, not the whole entire story, but maybe the chapter is going to be about some sort of failure. That's what I'm thinking, because I don't think the author would just give us a heading and it has nothing to do with the chapter that we're going to read. So that actually got my brain moving. Now, so when we looked at paragraph 1, we immediately know who our first character is. And our first character, his name, let me use my drawing tool, is Maximilian. Yeah, so we have our first character, Maximilian. And so in paragraph 1 and 2, we kind of learn why is this character significant in the story. Okay, so paragraph 1, I'm sorry, gives us an idea of where Maximilian is, necessarily in the story. But then in paragraph 2, it kind of gives us some direction, right? So it says, even in the first sentence of paragraph 2, the time machine had failed again. So now I know, which it kind of made me think, well, what is actually going on with Maximilian and this time machine? And why does he even need a time machine? So I know that I want to keep it consistent with, our graphic, organizer. So I am actually going to insert here what we know. So, oh, my bad. Sorry, guys. I forgot to turn off the drawing function. So let me delete that and let's bring this over. So we know that our character's name is Maximilian. Well, I don't necessarily know so far what he has to do with this time machine, not until you get to paragraph 3. So in paragraph 3, it gives us a little bit of insight on what exactly is Maximilian using the time machine for, because we know that Maximilian somehow connects with this time machine. But we also know the time machine has failed, okay? But we need to know exactly why is he even using the time machine. So, those are just my thoughts as I was reading, right? So, so let's check this out. So it says that Maximilian, in paragraph 3 here, he was on a mission. Let me use my drawing tool. He was on a mission to save his home in Tanner's Glen. When he learned that Farmer Tanner was being foreclosed on, he knew he had to do something as mouse of the house, okay? So I wanted to underline all of this because this actually gives us insight on why would he even be interested in using a time machine, right? So let's go back to our, and I'm sorry, I actually spelled this wrong. So let me turn this off. I missed the letter. So Maximilian, he was using a time machine, but now we know from paragraph 3 why he was even using a time machine. So he is using a time machine. What is he using a time machine to do? To save his home from foreclosure. So let's talk about what exactly does it mean to save his home from foreclosure. So basically he's about to lose his house. So this is just in real terms. He's about to be without a home. So homeless, evicted, whatever word, you guys want to use to bring it back to reality. So he's actually about to lose his home. But I think when he says that, I'm the mouse of the house, I think that allows us to imply that, he is the one that's working hard. So I think that we can infer. So I'm going to make an inference, right? Because sometimes, have you ever heard, let me know in the chat box and just put yes or no. Have you ever heard anybody, say, or well, not just anybody, a man say that, I'm the man of the house? Or have you ever heard that saying before? Because just put a yes or no in the chat box. And the reason why I'm asking is because it's, he says, I'm the mouse of the house. So I think that he has a lot of pressure. He's the one that's working hard to, save his house. And so I think it's important for us to really note how important it is for him to save his house, because when we get to the lesson that he has learned, we will understand why he's making the moves that he's making and why he's making these decisions that he is making, okay? So we know that he's on a mission to save his home, right? Now, think about this. What exactly is the character's problem? So we know that he's trying to save his home, but what exactly is the problem now? Tell me in the chat box, what exactly is the problem? So I'm going to watch the responses here. Oh, yeah, I see your responses from my previous question. Very good. So what is the problem in the story so far? Let me get this ready so that I can start putting your responses over here in the graphic organizer. What is the problem? And we're going to spend about maybe Couple more seconds to get these responses in so we can keep moving. Oh, very good. Josiah, first response, the time machine failed. Yes,